Welcome back to the Creators Leverage Guild podcast. I am your host, Mike, joined as always by Ben. And we're going to get into the weeds a little bit today. You guys ever have those times where your imagination gets the best of you? Maybe you watch a couple movies, start thinking about what the world's going to come to in the next 5 years. Then you have people like Rob, our episode last week, where he starts putting aliens and probing and everything else in your minds. And you just never know where the world is going. So Ben and I are going to hop in today in AI and what we think is coming with that in terms of not only like workforce and the layoffs, things like that. But we also want to talk about our thoughts on AI, where things have come. We've addressed this a little bit in a couple of the YouTube conversations we've had in the past. I think this would be a good one too, because I think AI is not going anywhere. And there are a lot of different perspectives and things like that we can come at with this in terms of how not only we learn AI, how much we're going to actually use it in our daily operations, but also in the next 3 to 5 years, where are we going to be in terms of jobs? I think what we're looking at today and what it's going to look like in 3 to 5 years in terms of even just applying for a job is going to be completely different. When you think back to like our parents, I'm 41, getting ready to be 42 this year. Ben's a little younger, he's 30. So I've had 20 some years in the workforce now. And the people that I came in with when I first hired in, they worked 30, 40 years, 50 years in some cases. They retired with a 401k, a pension, and so forth. Those days are dead. So we have to find better ways and different ways to basically make sure we're going to be able to retire comfortably when that time comes. And whether you want to retire at 50 or you want to retire at 70, that day's still coming eventually. So we need to make sure we're planning and putting things in place prior to, just to make sure we're on the right track. So that's what this episode is going to be about today. Hopefully this is an entertaining one for you guys. We've put a little bit of work into this one in terms of prep, so make sure we're giving you guys some real world stats. Ben, I know we've had multiple conversations over the last few months here. Both of us, I think, heavily resisted ChatGPT and some of those things at the beginning. We've swayed away from resisting, and we don't feel like Skynet's trying to take over the world. That's a Terminator reference in case you guys have never seen Terminator. But I don't think we're to those days yet where it's all doom and gloom. There's a lot of good to be had from AI. But what are your thoughts on this, man? Where do you want to start?
Yeah, so first, I want to say that there's two camps, and we were both in the resistant camp where you're like, no, I don't like this. I don't want AI to be as big of a thing. It's frustrating. I don't want it to take over all the jobs and everything like that. Or you're in the camp of, okay, I know that this is happening. I see the good in it, and I'm accepting. And it doesn't matter which camp you're in, the changes are going to happen regardless. We've already seen the past 3 years. I would say in 2023 is when I really started to hear a lot more about AI, especially on YouTube. If you noticed, YouTube videos about AI exploded in the year 2023. It's like everyone, if they made a video about ChatGPT, boom, 100,000, millions of views. I remember because I started following Alex Hormozy in like 2020 or 2021. But he made a video that year about AI and it quickly took off and became his like #1 viewed video. And the interesting thing is the shift to AI in 2023, for me, I was still in that resistant where I was like, this is not anywhere near where I think it could be, or like it wasn't very helpful at the time in 2023. And so I really didn't put in a lot of time into AI and using ChatGPT until 2025, 2 years later. And I started to notice how much it's improved just in those short 2 years compared to 2023. Now, part of my resistance to AI is certain things I do not like when it's using AI, and especially when it comes to creativity. It's funny because my dad would send me videos of animals and thinking that it's like real stuff, like cats doing funny things. And I'm like, Dad, do you even know that that's AI? It happens all the time. He's sending me videos over Facebook or Instagram thinking that it's real, but I'm like, Dad, that's AI. And he still isn't even realizing that. And that's how good AI is getting, is that even myself sometimes takes me a second to realize when something is AI. Now, where that has really hit me hard is with music. And this is the thing that I really do not like AI when it comes to music. Because on Spotify, the playlist that I have, it'll automatically put in songs in rotation. So it'll recommend songs to me. And the first couple times I would listen to one of these songs, I was like, this is really good, but it sounds too good. It sounds like too perfect. Every note was perfect. I listened to a lot of R&B songs, so they do all these crazy runs with their voice, and it was just too perfect. It just didn't sound human to me. And so then I would go and click on the song, click on the artist, and I'm like, oh, it's an AI picture. I'm like, oh man, how did I not realize that the first time? And that would just bug me because I love making music and I love the rawness of music. This is why I love going to concerts and live music, because you feel those raw imperfections. And that's like what makes artists, is the imperfections, the mistakes. But that rawness that you feel and you get that emotion from listening to live music, you can't beat that. You can't do that with AI. I would like click do not recommend if it was any AI song. So now I'm constantly just against any AI music that comes in my recommendations. But that's what I've found is the music. I really think, even with me being resistant to AI, is there's actually a lot of good that comes into music with AI. And me and Mike were talking about this earlier, is that he even thinks some of these AI songs are like really good, and I agree. And they even do sometimes have like the emotional tie with the lyrics or whatever, where you feel something. But the disconnect for me is that I want the human to human like touch, the human to human interaction. And that's what we're going to also talk about with video creation too. That's why when I watch a video and I see it's all AI, there's not that connection.
I'm not a big musician. I've played instruments in the past, but that's my brother's territory. He's the big musician of the family. But 100%, I mean, you're the emotion and the authenticity and just everything that comes with the music. Yeah, that's a big category, and it's taking over that as well. I mean, you're seeing some of these AI songs and bands climb the charts in a lot of cases. And there's actually, I think if I remember right, not too long ago, one of the first AI bands actually got signed to a record label. So it's neat in a way, but it's going to deplete the workforce in that category, which is exactly where we're trying to segue into here later on in the episode. And I guess to backdate a little bit, like I can't remember the exact month that I first tried using like a ChatGPT type application, but I do remember like, okay, I'm gonna try this out, see what it is. And I literally just thought it was gonna be another version of Google or Bing or Ask Jeeves or something like that. And the answer I asked it probably a super simple question if I remember right, and it gave me back a super simple answer. And it's crazy to me just in that short time frame how I went from being so resistive to something new to trying it out a few times and then how fast it's grown. I mean, I went from having simple questions that you'd ask Google to having full-blown conversations in a lot of cases, trying to brainstorm and come up with outlines for like these episodes, for instance, just trying to get your thoughts gathered, to creating full-blown images, full-blown videos. I haven't done the video thing yet, but I've done a lot of images just with it. And it's cool because I could take a background and have it create something like that. And then I can use that for a thumbnail, or I could, like for these episodes that we make for these podcasts, for instance. It's just fun to kind of play with that stuff in that instance. But then when I do like a review stuff on the Amazon and YouTube, I try to use more real thumbnails in those cases. So that I still separate a little bit in terms of what I want, how I want to be branded, depending on what it is we're talking about. But AI is not going anywhere. And it's funny because now it's everybody talked about ChatGPT at first. Then it's Claude, Gemini. You've got Nano Banana now. There's all these different AIs out there that everybody's trying, and they're all competing for the number one spot now. So what we're seeing is a lot of your workforces and how many headlines there are in the news almost on a weekly basis where Amazon laid off 14,000 jobs in their corporate headquarters, and UPS is laying off jobs for different tasks that they can do with AI now. So it's very real. It's going to keep happening. You're going to have to level up your skill sets no matter what you're doing. And it's funny because as many surgeons and doctors' offices I've been in the last 6 months, the amount of times that I've heard my surgeons and my doctors mention AI in the medical field is a little scary because I feel like the next surgery I'm going to have 6 months, year, 5 years from now, it's not even going to be a doctor there. I'm just going to have some robot standing in front of me saying, okay, let's have this surgery and get it done.
I don't trust that.
Oh man, it's scary. So, I mean, there's places where AI is taking over and you don't necessarily want it to. And then there's those times where I feel like it's very relevant and very needed. And it's cool because as an entrepreneur, especially in this space, we're all creatives, we're filming, whether it just be review videos or you're just doing like a YouTube channel, something like that. Basically $20 a month, you can have a virtual assistant now that you can talk to and help you create a lot of these ideas, do the brainstorming, even do some of the imagery that you want to do. And you don't have to hire somebody. So you can be a one-man band for a very long time in a lot of cases. What I'm also seeing is like, okay, the people that are still resisting in 2026 that haven't used ChatGPT yet, and most of us have, but there's still those people out there that have resisted. And how many people are in like data entry roles or just the real mundane tasks that like ChatGPT, it's been nailing it for a couple of years now. It's only going to keep getting better. I mean, we could almost virtually replace an accountant at this point if we wanted to. It's crazy the amount of information it can bring back. There is a lot of things that are not quite factual yet that we're seeing. It's getting better though with time. I do think that there's a level or degree to AI where we have to take it with a grain of salt what it's saying. That's the scary thing to me is a lot of people have gone through, I mean, and we've got a little bit of a generation gap between me and you, Ben, where I've been in the workforce for 25 years, going on 30 now. I've developed a lot of skills. I've worked pretty much corporate jobs or some sort of corporate job my whole working career. So I feel like at my age, I've got a lot of knowledge in certain areas and even some levels like with alignment and some of the fiber networking and stuff like that that I do. I could technically teach and preach on that stuff and probably make that into a second career as well. Those that were maybe your age and they went to school for like computer science and coding, things like that, you can code now with ChatGPT. There's Base 44 out there where you can create your own apps. So we've really got to figure out not only the generations, like from generation to generation, where we're going. Someone that's 60, coming up in retirement, doesn't have a lot of money. How do we help them get into something that they can make a little bit of money so that they still stay comfortable after retirement? Someone that's 20 years old, just got out of high school, going into college. What degrees do we go into? What do we need to be learning that AI can't take over for us right now? And then going forward from there, what life experience can you gather and gain over the next 20, 30 years of your working career to where when you do hit 40, 50, 60 years old, you can still be an authority in something? Because I feel like that's really where we're going to be, is if you're not doing blue collar work, like a plumber, electrician, something like that, where we don't probably don't have to worry about AI taking over those kind of jobs just right away. But at the same time, like secretaries and things like that answer phones, AI can do that now too. I mean, you can go something like high level and it can answer the phone for you, take a message and generate a lead for you. And you don't have to have anybody sitting at a desk for 40 hours a week.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how just in the past year, it seems like even in the space that we're in, there's a new extension being made like every week. People are like, oh, I made this extension that does this. I was able to build this. And that none of them have, at least in my like thoughts, I don't think any of them have a degree in the coding or IT, like that knowledge, but they were able to use ChatGPT or Claude or Base 44 to help them build an extension like that, which is just crazy to think the world that we're living in, how much has changed. So I turned 30 in May, so I'm almost 30. And my parents are in their late 50s. My dad actually just turned 60 2 weeks ago. But I grew up in a very traditional house where I've always been taught get the college degree, the traditional 9 to 5. My dad majored in music, which is not like the traditional route. And so he majored in music at ASU. And during that time when he was going to college, he was working at UPS. So with his music degree, he would do like small venues and play his trumpet at like concerts. He did some traveling where he would go play on a cruise ship and things of that nature, but it wasn't bringing in an income like the more traditional degrees would. And so he stuck with his job at UPS. And for 30 years, he worked there from 21 to 51. And he retired in 2017. And so he had like his pension with that. Then he's been doing his demolition job, which he did on the side while he was working at UPS for like the last 10 years of his job at UPS. And then my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom until my youngest brother was old enough to go to elementary school. Then she got a job at the elementary school. So she's been working since 2010, and now she does speech pathology. So she works with kids with speech issues, and she got a degree online for that. And so they've both been working for the past 20 to 30 years together. And even with their pensions, with all the work that they've done, they still feel like they don't have the retirement plan in place. And I've actually been trying to help my dad get into Amazon and do some things on the side to help them get into that retirement plan. So I think that's where the traditional route that I was taught growing up, to me, it never clicked. It never felt like the right move for me. But I've always had that entrepreneur spirit since I was a kid, and I always wanted to do my own thing and not rely on somebody else for an income. And even in the past 10 years, the job market is completely changed. And really in the past 20 years with the internet, like the world we live in is completely different than it was 20 years ago. There's way more opportunities with the internet to build businesses, build incomes throughout that. So now my opinion has shifted where I feel like it's more risky to go the traditional route nowadays than it was 30 years ago. So the people that are in their 18, 20, like I would advise you could take the traditional route, but you should also kind of work on things on the side. And I think that's kind of how the world has been shifting, as you need those side hustles. And I know Mike has always been doing side hustles while he's been working, like trying out different things. And so I think that is really where we're headed to get ahead. If you're just focused on, like the world has changed so much that it's very rare to have one spouse making the income to cover for the family. It's now you pretty much need a two, or what is it called, dual income. And even with that, it's still, some people are living paycheck to paycheck, and it's like really hard to get ahead. And so I think that's where having these side hustles, building up something else, is the way to get ahead and prepare for the future. I don't want to be reliant on a company. And so I think that's the thing that really changed for me. I was going to college and I still might get a degree at some point, but once 2020 happened, my classes stopped like taking attendance and I stopped doing the work. And that's kind of where I shifted out of college and started work on the side hustles and building my own things. And so that's what I think the shift is really just, you have to be building things on the side, building the skill sets, which is something we'll talk about more in this conversation as well, is how important the skills are that we're developing.
This is probably one of the areas where Ben and I overlap and have so many similar thoughts, but what we've walked through in life, mainly because of age too, but we are very different in terms of where we come from as far as working background goes. So like you mentioned, I've had side hustles most of my life. And it's funny because a lot of what I've done, and let's just say for the sake of example, the last 16 years, I've been at the same company and it's a union job. It's a CWA union. And what I've watched and seen, when I first hired in, I had a guy that was already in his 70s when I hired in there. And by the time he left, he was 82. He had 52 years in, not at the same company because the company did kind of, change names over the years. But I mean, just imagine working somewhere for 30 years and this guy worked it for 52 years before he actually hung up the job, retired, and went to go enjoy life for a few more years before he eventually passed away. But the thing is, like pensions, you mentioned pensions. I actually am one of the few people that I still know that at my age, at 41 years old, I have a pension, and that pension is pretty sizable because of the time I've been there. Find me a job where you can actually still get a pension these days. They're out there, but super rare. So anything you do investment wise, it has to be on you. You have to be aware of how to do a 401k, or how to do, what's the one for teachers? Is it 503B, I think it is. And then if you're in the government, they've got their own retirement account as well. You need to have some kind of retirement account from day one. I really wish in my early 20s, somebody would have put their hand on my shoulder and said, look, you need to start this account and start putting money into it. Because while I feel like I'm in a pretty good position right now, had I had another 10 years to invest, could have put me in a really good position where I could have been looking at, by 55 years old, I could go without putting a ton of effort in. And that's just something that dating back to like your parents and my parents, they're in their 60s now. They didn't have the internet back then. So everything they learned had to be learned from a news channel or an encyclopedia or something like that. So I can't fault my parents or that generation for not knowing how to do these investment things if they weren't working in those fields to begin with. So a lot of them coming up on retirement age now, it's pretty scary for some of them. And I've had conversations with several where like, including my own parents, where it's like, we may have to work till the day we die. And I hate hearing that because could you imagine working your butt off? And a lot of our parents in that generation, that age group, they've worked hard. Like they didn't have easy jobs. They were blue collar. My dad, for instance, he drove a semi truck his whole life, was on the road all the time. I mean, he made good money, but he wasn't home much. And the toll that takes on you physically, I mean, you're bouncing down the road. You're not walking, putting in steps every day. So it could take a toll on your health quite a bit, just doing those types of jobs like that. Not to mention the sleep schedule and not being able to do anything. You're not getting a full 8 hours of sleep or laying over and having to stay in a sleeper in the back of your truck or a hotel, whatever that might be. And then my mom's always had office jobs. It's very scary. And they're getting it. They're figuring it out. But it's like my dad now, he's on disability. So I wouldn't say he's not figured out. It's just that's the way his life it kind of took the turn and went. It'll work out to where I think he'll be okay going into retirement because he kind of sort of are retired anyways now at this point. Mom's trying to figure it out. She's getting into, like you said, you mentioned your dad getting into AIP. My mom's trying to get into and see if she can get going on that. So just in their off time, especially, man, they don't have kids at house anymore. So they've got more time in the evenings. It's like if you can figure out these skills and figure out the technology at an older age and learn how to leverage the AI as you go, it's amazing what we can do. And then on the flip side of that, someone my age, like I said, I've got the wisdom and I've got the experiences over time. And I've learned how to do the union jobs. It's like those blue collar skills that I've learned, I can still use because now I can basically take those into a YouTube channel, which I'm already doing with my farm stuff. And I can do projects and things that I've already learned along the way. And that's the thing. AI can teach you so much, but it cannot teach you what you can learn in the field. And that's the thing. Like when you go through a training, like for my job, for instance, they put you through a month of training and say, all right, you're good to go. And pretty much all of us will tell you whatever you learn in training, the day you get out in the field, it's going to be completely different. It's not the same. There's certain aspects like the theory and the foundation that can carry over, but a lot of this has to be learned as you go.
That's exactly like when I did like a church service mission, and I went to Argentina, and what they do is you get like 6 weeks. You go to a training facility in Utah and you're trying to learn a new language. So you have a teacher. So you're thinking that, oh yeah, I've got a lot of Spanish down now. And then you get to Argentina and you're like, what is this language? This is even what I learned for the past 6 weeks. That's
The
exactly how
dialect's
it feels.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So that's what I'm saying. Is you can get all these things. So I look at AI as like it's the textbook version of what you're going to learn in college or learn in school. But as soon as you get out in the field and you start learning some of this other stuff, whatever the industry might be, it's completely different. Like the hands-on experience, for example, being a mechanic, and you can read through every book on how to tear an engine down, how to take this bolt out, how to take that bolt out. But what you don't learn is which extension with which socket, with what ratchet, it's going to actually get down there and get that done the right way. If you take this cross member out before this, the fender or whatnot, this is how you can save 2 hours of time. Those are the things you learn from the guys that have spent hours and hours being mechanics in a shop. So there's a lot of that stuff like that that can really do well on YouTube. And if those guys learn how to leverage AI so they can get their brainstorming together, figure out their content schedule, how they want to put things out there and so forth, you can really put together a skill that you spent years learning, and you can implement that with AI and be able to go forward. So even if you're not doing reviews like we're doing right now, you still have a skill set over here that you can implement with new technology and really turn it into something that's more of like an entrepreneurial journey, whether it be a side hustle where you're making $1,000 a month, or if it turns into your full-time income. It's really cool to see what you can do these days.
I had the idea of helping my dad start a YouTube channel years ago, and I thought it'd be cool to record his demolition jobs and have like the whole before and after, and just have like a camera, a GoPro set up, and just record the whole process of him starting tearing down a mobile home and just doing like a time lapse where it goes over the whole thing, and people could enjoy that to watch. The only problem is there's certain rules where he goes on the property and he can't have more than one person and things of that nature. And also having a camera up, like he would probably have to get permission. So it's a lot more complicated than I first originally thought, but it would have been a cool idea to do. And so I think we recorded 1 or 2 videos, and I had to be the cameraman too. So that was also a thing that I was like, I can't be going out to all these jobs to record for him, but it was a cool idea in the scheme of things. But I think that's kind of where you have to start thinking outside the box and thinking, what are things? It wasn't changing much for my dad, this idea. He was still going to do his jobs, his demolition jobs. The only extra thing was setting up a tripod and a camera, having to go check on it every so often, which is something that I would have to be the one to do. But it doesn't take too much extra effort for him. That's kind of what I like about AIP is we're taking our videos and we're just using a little bit more effort posting them on international YouTube. So it's kind of that same type of thinking where what are some skills that you have and what is something you could do that doesn't take a lot of extra effort, but it can turn into an extra income down the road. So like maybe that's teaching a skill. If my buddy is an electrician, maybe he can make some tutorials on how to install whatever and post those on YouTube because he's already going out to do those jobs. What if he just set up a camera real quick and then talked about it and did it? It'd take an extra 5 to 10 minutes, but now he's got an extra income that could grow into something on the side.
What I think is really cool, to play off what you just said too, is if you think about anything entrepreneurial, and then we relate this back to what we just talked about with working a 9 to 5 job the rest of your life. When you work a 9 to 5, it's an hourly rate. It's based on what that company feels you're worth and what they can afford for that position. Entry level might be $10, $15 an hour. You work your way up and you might max out 20, $25. If you're in a skilled trade, you could see anywhere from $30 to 40, 45, 50, depending on whether you're a master electrician, something like that. But that's it. Well, I mean, especially in the union jobs, everything is a negotiated contract. And unless you're working like a government job or it's a prevailing wage, something like that, you pretty much know every hour you work and put in is going to be $35 an hour or whatever that price might be. Every hour over 40 is going to be time and a half. If you're lucky enough to be in one of those positions where they pay double time on Sundays, something like that, you might get that. But what I really quickly found, especially before I came into AIP and started doing a lot of the review videos, is I had to work 80-hour weeks to be able to make that $120,000, $130,000 a year that I wanted to make. I was selling my life away, and I missed a lot of my kids' first things in childhood. I was doing a lot of FaceTime, and where the money was really good and we met a lot of financial goals that me and my wife wanted to meet, I was losing a lot of the value and the time and the experiences with my family. So as an entrepreneur, you don't have those restrictions either. So yeah, you could go out and mow 20 yards in a day if you had the time to do so, but you can charge what you feel you're worth. And as long as the person on the other end is willing to pay you that price and feels that your work or your value is worth that amount, you can make $1,000 in a day. And that's where we really start to skyrocket, especially in this creator space, because there's so much that you can do that creates a passive income where I'm and Ben and I've talked about this several times. It's like I go to work, I make $35, $36 an hour roughly. That's a really good wage. That's awesome. But when I come home and I make my videos, and especially like right now where I'm just not putting a ton of effort into the content because I'm putting more effort into our community and our podcast and stuff, those videos are sitting over there making me money. They're completely passive right now. And how do you put a dollar figure on that per hour? You really can't. I mean, I put the work in before, but if they keep working for you for 10 years, honestly, those videos could be worth thousands of dollars an hour at that point in time if they really perform well for you. And I think that's the mindset shift that we need to have, especially with trying to link AI into this and all that, is like we can really, as an entrepreneur and building a business, whether you're in the creator space or whether you're just running your own lawn care business for that matter, there's so many things AI can do for you. Like I said, you can have it literally answer the phones for you. Or in our case, we can have it brainstorm and come up with these outlines. You can have it make the thumbnail images. You don't have to pay somebody that way. You get to dictate how much money you're making by the effort you're putting in, the knowledge you bring, and the value you can deliver in the end. And that $35 an hour, if you got to work that full-time job, or maybe you're just trying to supplement, and that side income is going to pay for the vacations and all that. But also, we got to think about if AI was to actually, there is no if, when AI decides to become a bigger and better thing, because really, honestly, right now, we are in the middle of the fastest growing industry since probably the Industrial Revolution in a way. I can't remember in my time being alive anyways, where something has grown this quickly and this fast.
Self-driving cars, like I would have never thought that would be a thing a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And now you see Waymo just thinking of a car picking people up and there's no driver in it.
Yeah,
It's just crazy.
that kind of goes back with what I was thinking there. The fact that we have autonomous cars that are starting to hit the roads. And here in Indiana, we've actually got semis that are making trips across 70 already testing. So the fact that the semi drivers are going to be a reduction in force down the road, we've got to figure out ways to secure our incomes so that in 3 to 5 or 10 years down the road, what can we be doing to still be working? And let's just face it, most of us are paycheck to paycheck. So we've got to figure out ways to where we're not going to be paycheck to paycheck anymore. So it might start off, this is a cool side hustle. I'm making $500 a month and I can take a vacation or I can pay for my kids' college. What do you do when tragedy strikes? When your husband comes home and says, they laid me off today, AI's taken over my job. We've got to find ways now to start planning ahead so that these side hustles, maybe side hustles right now, but they can ramp up and eventually become full-blown businesses that can support our families going down the road as these things quickly evolve the next 3 to 5 years from now.
It's almost like we're building our own security blanket over these years because we're not only building the side hustle, but we're also developing skills with content creation, with video editing, with marketing. There's so many little skills that you're developing within creating videos for AIP and then for YouTube that it's actually a lot of small things that will help you in the long run. And you kind of don't really think about that, but building a security blanket. So if you're ever in that scenario where your partner is laid off or you lose your job, you don't have like nothing. You have something to fall back on and something that maybe is earning more than what you're making at your job, but you want to keep the job just as a safety net, but you have that to fall back on. I just think the world is changing so much. And with AI, we don't know what 5 years from now will look like. We don't know what kind of world we'll be living in. But I think the more important thing is I want to set myself up. I don't want to depend on other people. And I think that's kind of where our mindset should be shifting, is not depending on a job, not depending on the other outside resources, depending on ourselves, building something that we can use and we can build our own retirement plan from, and something that has potential to earn more over years of time. And that's where I think content creation and YouTube is so exciting to me, because those videos live on YouTube and they can continue earning for you for as long as people are still going to watch them. So that's where I think that shift is very important.
Yeah, the evergreen material, 100%. That's where we're at. That's what we've been preaching for a while now, too, is while it's cool that Amazon is presented us with such an opportunity to create these review videos for them, it's just like anything else. Everything comes in waves. It goes to the trend, peaks at some point in time. The next popular thing comes into play, and everybody jumps off one ship onto the other, and we keep moving it forward. So that's something we got to think about, too. What skills can we develop now that are going to help us later on? I know looking at some of these reports and the headlines and things like that, every time AI headline pops up, I like to look at just what that article might be talking about. A lot of them are irrelevant, but every once in a while, one catches my eye. And one recently was from the World Economic Forum saying that basically by the year 2030, 22 to 25% of jobs are going to be displaced in the world, not just in the United States. And if you think about that, what jobs are those going to probably be? Well, we just talked about semi-drivers. If you've got autonomous vehicles by that time, self-driving cars, we've got data entry jobs, we've got accountant jobs. Just going to Walmart or going to McDonald's, you're ordering your own food now. There's nobody at the counter anymore. So all these kind of more entry-level jobs, things where it's like data crunching and numbers, those jobs are already starting to go by the wayside. So we've really got to figure out what kind of skills we can develop going through and navigating through this as we're still working our job. And you were mentioning all that a second ago. And I was like, man, you're talking about me because I make at least as much now at home as I do at my full-time job. In most cases, I'm making a little bit more now. But I'm still working. Well, I'm still employed at the moment for my 9 to 5 job. And a lot of what you just mentioned is I want security when the day comes that when I do jump, or if they decide just to lay me off in that instance, I've got money saved up, ready to go. My bills are low. One of my goals for this year is by my birthday in August to have my house paid off before I quit the job. By having that big monumental milestone that a lot of people don't even actually achieve, and some people just never pay their house off, by the age of 42, basically, I'll have my house paid for. That's a milestone that I really lean heavily on. That it's like, oh, there's $1,000 for me. It's about $1,500 a month, roughly, that I don't have to worry about paying out anymore. So when I do jump to $10,000 a month for doing Amazon and YouTube, that money stretches a lot further. I feel a lot more secure. And if the Amazon does go belly up for whatever reason, they decide they flip the switch and they don't need influencers anymore, something like that, I'll still be okay. I've gathered all these skill sets along the way. I've networked with a ton of people that if they don't have a good idea for me on what I can try, then maybe they've got an opportunity for me that I can hop on and get paid for the short term, something like that. And that's what's really cool about these communities, especially our Creators Leverage Guild community. We're creating friendships with people that we may or may not ever meet in person. There's all walks of life within this community. Some people are physical therapists. Others are, you said, speech pathologists. We've got a few of those in the community. Some are stay-at-home moms. I mean, there's all these different people that can come together. And when one of us falls, we can say, hey, I know this person in this area. Maybe check with them, see what's going on. So the networking side of this stuff is also very huge in terms of what we're developing and what we're building over time on this entrepreneur journey that we're on.
Yeah, something that I've been doing in the paid tier of our community is documenting some of my own endeavors and investments. So I made a big purchase about a month ago, investing in 11 products and spent a little bit over $1,000. And I thought it'd be really fun to document that whole process of, okay, I just bought them. These are the reasons I bought them, what I was looking at. This is kind of what I'm expecting to make. And today I just posted a 1 month update for that and how it's going. And it's pretty cool to see the changes over time and kind of that whole process of me documenting that. And basically, I was able to recoup almost 20%. And the videos that I posted have only been up for about 2 weeks. And just in the past 2 days, I've made almost a tenth of what I paid for those items in just 2 days from Creator Connection. So the results are pretty crazy. And that's what I love, being able to share the product research and share what I'm doing, not only by telling, but doing it in real time and showing that whole journey. And so if you're wanting to dive into product research and really get into the weeds and like learn good product research, I highly recommend checking out our paid tier. Just that product research tab, or it's called Product Research Lab in our community, is so valuable. We've gotten so many good like informations and things that we've shared within that part of the community. So check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I've been really anxious to see your results from this study essentially that you're doing right now with these items that you picked up for comparisons. And I know a lot of what you did was through like Keepa and some of the research things that we're doing right now. But I'm curious, did you at any point in time was ChatGPT or Gemini, something like that, any part of the strategy in terms of what you were going to select, or are you using it anywhere to plan your videos out in terms of try to brainstorm the video from one to the other?
It actually has been, but more so for at the end of 2025, I did a report where I pulled in my earnings report, added it to ChatGPT, and I was like, okay, summarize this for me. What things am I doing well? And like, what area should I focus on for the next year? Basically, what it gave back to me was continue with the fitness products. You're doing very well with the fitness products. Like, continue with that and continue experimenting with those comparison top 10, top 5 videos, because those are doing very well for you. And so it was like almost like affirming all the things that I originally thought already, but it was cool to hear it from ChatGPT as well. So then it's confirming that, okay, what I'm doing is working, the path that I'm going is working. So I felt more confident when I went to make that big purchase that it was going to work out.
So essentially, you're using it as a business coach, is what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're taking it to your mentor in a way and saying, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? It's funny. One of the comments that Lynn said in the group the other day, or maybe it was in one of our messages, I can't remember, but she feels like ChatGPT can be too comforting at times. And so, I love Lynn because she's like, quit talking to me like I am a freaking child. And she's like, just talk to me like I'm a Gen X with basically a chip on your shoulder type thing. And she's like, it immediately changed its tone, how it was talking to her. It went from like coddling her to giving her tough love. She goes, that's what I need. Do that from here on out. And I think that's part of that's something worth mentioning as well. So you can train ChatGPT or Gemini or any of those, Claude for that matter, to speak to you more in your personality, will meet you at your level. And I've noticed that too. I've gone through and I've asked questions and it's like, oh, great job, pat on the back. And I'm like, no. I wanted you to give me tough love and you didn't. So don't be afraid to talk to it about those things. Maybe don't insult it, because if Skynet ever does become a thing and we have to fight Terminators, I don't want to be number one on the hit list. Let's just put it that way. But
yeah, definitely not. No, I was going to say my ChatGPT has definitely changed over time as well. And I think that's the cool thing, is when I was able to add my reports, is it already knew a bunch of background information about how much I've been doing with AIP, and I've already shared so much. So it wasn't just like giving back exactly what the reports were showing. It was like giving me details from previous conversations. So it like gave me a lot more than I was expecting from just sharing the Excel report document that I shared. So that was cool.
And it's almost kind of scary in a way too sometimes, because you've shared something, 2-3 years ago, and you're like, it still remembers that. It's like, it's kind of creepy that it remembers that from that long ago. But that's what's also kind of cool about it, is it does remember, especially if you're using a paid version, the memory is much better in terms of what it can retain. It's cool because you can mention something like you said, well, it knows that I have a farm. It knows that I've done AIP and these earnings, and I've got this podcast and all these things. And it can put all that together and give you angles that you may not have already thought about. It's like, have you thought about trying this and this because you're into both of these things? What if you combined them together and made an episode or made a video about this? I'm like, I never thought of that. That's actually a pretty good idea. And then you can get off and running with it like that. So I think the key takeaway on this episode really is we went all over the place a little bit. AI is very real. It's not going anywhere. It's growing faster than anything in our generation or our lifetime has grown. But I don't think we've seen any kind of growth like this since the Industrial Revolution, in my opinion. So instead of resisting it or maybe going all out with it, try to find like a middle ground where at least we're learning these skills, because nothing else, if you decide you don't want to be an entrepreneur down the road, a lot of your companies out there, if they're still hiring at all, they're going to be looking for people that are proficient in these skills and knowing how to use these different technologies as they come out and get better. The more valuable you're going to make yourself to an employer. And if not, it's going to make you that much more successful as an entrepreneur going forward. So we really need to lean in and embrace a lot of these technologies. I know it's depending on who you are, you're going to be gung-ho on this or you're going to be resistive. I would suggest definitely trying to lean into a little bit, learn what we got, and use a lot of these technologies that we have available at our disposal.
Use them as an aid. You don't have to completely rely on them, but just add in a little bit more to your routine with AI and just find ways to make your life a little bit easier. I was talking about, I made a comment on a Facebook post and I said, make one change on your video creation process, and then 3 months from now, see if your income has gone up because of that one change. If it went down, then you can go back and backtrack and do a different change, but constantly look at what you're doing, add one small detail so you're not completely changing everything. And I think this applies directly with AI. Just try one small thing with it and see how it affects you for the next 3 months. And then you can add in another change in 3 months.
Yeah, that's great advice. And that's something like I said, just constantly be changing, adapting, testing, try to find whatever's going to work for you the best. And if it didn't work out, that's okay. We're allowed to make mistakes and we can go back to the drawing board. And that's what's nice about this, is you've always got a phone right there next to you that you could talk to. It's going to give you some pretty decent feedback in the end. That's what's going to make us successful in the end, guys. But hopefully, like I said, we bounced around quite a bit on this episode. These are just some of the thoughts that Ben and I had top of mind right now. So we thought it'd make a good episode. Appreciate you guys being here with us today. If you made it this far into the episode, other than that, I think that's where we'll leave you. We'll leave a link to the community in the show notes. If you guys decide you want to try to join that there, we've got a lot of great discussions, including things that are AI based that you guys might want to take advantage of. Other than that, make it a great week. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.